let's cover how you use links within your HTML. I've created this blog post that goes into more details, but without further ado, let's jump right into Visual Studio Code. So the first thing I want to talk about is how to set up a hyperlink within your HTML. So to do that, you're going to use the A tags, so the opening A tag and the closing A tag, to create a link. And you're also going to want to use the href attribute. So we're going to add that href. And from here, we can link to anywhere we'd like. So this href attribute is a way to add a URL to, when on click, we'll go to that URL. So in our case, we can just do an example. We can say, hey, I want to go to MatthewSiewert.com. And we can say, click here. Within the tags, you're going to say, click here to go to MatthewSiewert.com. So in the browser, you're going to see this text, and then clicking on it will take you to my website. Now, to kind of expand upon this, there are two types of links that you can do. You could do an internal link and also an external link. An internal link, really the only main difference I would say is going to be that you're using generally the relative path instead of the absolute path for a URL. So the absolute path is the full URL, the longest version, and then the relative path is the shorter version, the abbreviation. So the great benefit of internal links is that you can use the shortened version. So in the case of MatthewSiewert.com/blog, we could go to the blog page on my website as an absolute path. So this is the absolute path. You could do the same, for an external link, but for internal links, we have the benefit to shorten this. So instead of the full URL, we would just do /blog. And then you can say with the text, you say click here to go to the blog. So that is internal linking and external linking. Now, if you wanted to, let's say another thing you can do is open links in a new tab. So for links that you want to open in a new tab, and let's just take this link up top. If you want to open this link to my website in a new tab, all you got to do is add another attribute. And that's going to be that target attribute. And we want to use _blank. _blank is a way to essentially tell the browser, open this in a new tab versus staying in the current one. By default, links will go and remain in the current tab, but with this attribute, that changes. You can also, the alternative is _self, but since it's already, the default behavior, the _self will essentially tell the browser to remain in the current tab, but we don't need that because it's already the default behavior, so we can just remove that. Now, the next thing I wanted to cover was anchor links, and I have an example from the blog that I can just carry over. And with anchor links, instead of linking to a internal page or an external website from the current website that you're on, you can use this idea of anchor links, which is allowing you to link to different parts of the page that you are currently visiting. So in this example here, to make this work, all you have to do is you're still using a link tag. This doesn't change. The only difference is you're now using an identifier, an identification, or an ID, which is it's an HTML attribute that you can use to recognize an element that is unique to the rest of the page that you're working on. So we're using this ID attribute. You're going to add that to the section or the part of the page that you want to navigate to on the click of the link. You'll add that ID, and then in the link, instead of a URL, you're going to do the hash symbol and then followed by the name of the ID. And so that is how you anchor link. And clicking on this link up top will take you down to this page, this section. So you could have a bunch of different sections, like so. So we can say this is section 1, this is section 2. And so clicking on this link will take you down to section 2. As you see, the ID is section 2. It'll take you there. It will skip past this section. And so that is anchor linking, something that you can take advantage of, especially if you have a very big document like a report or anything that has a lot of text. you can use some sort of glossary or index to get to the section that you're most interested in. Now, the final thing I wanted to cover was styling hyperlinks. That is a final thing that as you start to expand beyond HTML, you can get into CSS. And there's multiple ways to style a link. The most basic way, or the fundamental way, is using or referencing the A tags or the links from the website just with the name of the tag. So this A here followed by, a styling, such as text decoration. We want to remove that default. Links come by default in the browser with an underline. Here I'm saying let's remove that, so I'm doing text decoration none. And so that is how you can target all of the links on your website. If you used an ID, for instance, so in our example here we're using the ID section 2 for the H2, we could instead say, if in this case this is just a header element, a header tag, but if this was, let's say, an A tag instead, or we can do this actually, we can use, let's go ahead and add an ID up here. We can say this is our intro link. You can put whatever you'd like, but this is the ID intro link. And then from here, we can reference that intro link like so. And then we can say the same thing. And so this ID intro link, this first link I have up here, I added an ID, an identifier, and to target it specifically, that link, we're just using the hash symbol followed by the name of the ID and then giving it a style. So that's another way to style. And then let's say you had a group of links. So if you had multiple links, let's say you had multiple links here. So instead of an ID, you also can use what's called a class. And we can say, oh, this is, for instance, you might have a list of social links on your website in the footer. So you can do social links, and we have multiples of those. They could go to really any links, your Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. You have all these links with the class of social links. A class is essentially an attribute that is useful for when you have a group of links that you want to style in a similar way. And so to reference that, you use the dot or the period, the name of the class, and then the style. And so that is how you style classes, style links with classes, style links with IDs, and then finally styling all the links in general is a way to do that. There's even more than that you can get into if you have, parents and all of that. I talk a little bit more about it in my blog, but these are the most common ways that you might find yourself styling. I generally would encourage, for the most part, trying to style as much as possible at the most basic fundamental level to start before expanding into IDs and classes. I think it makes the code cleaner, but certainly do what you think is best. There's a lot of different variations of ways you want to style, but this just gives you an idea of how to target links specifically. So that's all for today. Thanks so much for watching.